Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back. This is Pro Cycling Manager, but we are talking about Pro Cycling Manager 2023. This is a follow-up video to a video I did a couple weeks ago on feature requests for the next Pro Cycling Manager title. Now, it's only been a couple months since this came out, but in the way that the game goes through its progression year on, they are beginning that process every August, what sort of new features they are planning for the following year, with those decisions coming quite soon from now. So in the meantime, we just have some automated Hell of the North action, Paris-Roubaix, as we talk about what we're going to talk about this time, which is your requests. This is the viewer requests from the comments section of my video, my top 10 list, and from you I picked out 8 additional features on top of the ones that I already listed. Let's start with number 8. Sprint crashes, as in especially finish line sprints. The game just doesn't contain crashes in those areas. I've never seen one. Last year, this year, ever even seen a couple late crashes. They always were in the middle of a stage and never late. I have seen them get later and later. Oh, Hadaway, who attacks, ends up with a puncture. And even though I wouldn't necessarily love to see more crashes in the game, it is realistic. And realism is the aim. Now Rudy Millard goes down. It is raining after all. Number 7. Easy relay mode. Right now, when you're selecting relay, and I can show you from here, when you're selecting relay, whether it's infinite or the regular relay, you have to manage the effort. You have to tweak that up and down to get it where you want to be. If you're in the breakaway, it's constantly telling you in the upper corner how much effort is required to be contributing, and you have to micromanage that constantly. There should be an additional button option for auto relay, where it'll automatically manage the necessary effort to be amongst the other riders that are contributing in the relay. Number 6, Pro Cyclist training camps. And this is one of those things that could go either way. You could go all in on something like this and have the training camp be something you actually actively do, participate in some form or another. Or it could be a very mild thing where you get minor training, minor XP gains, or a minor temporary boost to attributes based on just a couple clicks of a button. But implementing training camps into the Pro Cyclist mode, because it's there in career mode in one form, though actually I think that could be revamped personally, as well as it's mostly useless until you get to World Tour level and have Grand Tours to prepare for, and otherwise there's so little gain, a pretty hefty cost. So unless you have tons of money and tons of time and tons of riders on your team, the benefits are fairly minimal. Number 5, earlier in the calendar, that is, contract renewals of your riders. So not changing the whole system, but your existing riders. And that would open up to some competition from other teams because they could do the same thing. So upcoming expiring contracts within your own team or within their own team, re-signings can happen sooner rather than later, including your development riders. Hanging on to your development riders for further or future years. You should have some sort of benefit from having, as we enter the Forest of Ehrenberg here, and the race really kicks off. Kuhn looking really good as we enter, but he's only on a +1. Number 4, better sponsor objectives. And this is a twofold one. There's 2 parts that are kind of mentioned here. One is that the sponsor objectives, currently as they are, a lot of them are very random and not often associated with things that make sense for your individual sponsor. Now, I've been in the database and I know how the system functions, and I know why it will pick some regions over other regions, but you'll often get numerous sponsor objectives on a total opposite part of the world compared to where your sponsor is actually located. And it just feels very, very random. Now, personally, I like the fact that there is variance, that you do not have the same objectives every single year. But it would be kind of nice if your sponsor had a couple. Wow, that's our third puncture already. If your team had a couple of key sponsor objectives that come up every year. And that could be something labeled before you're choosing a sponsor. You know what their 3 key races are, or 2 key races. I think 3 is a nice round number. You had 3 key races that are yearly objectives. Then you had variance in the others. Okay, but the second part to this, and I think this is almost as important, if not more important, is bring back the negotiable objectives. I am strongly in this camp, and this was a very popular thing in the comments section. It used to be, and I want to say this is about 4 years ago now, since they've done away with this, but it used to be, dang, we're down to just 2 riders and 46 overall in the peloton, 8 away, and they're all pretty dang close, so it looks like peloton will be claiming this race, and it continues on from here. Anyway, they did away with it about 4 years ago, but it used to be that you would get the opportunity to, you get your list of objectives, and though that part is non-negotiable, you have your list, but what is it that you need to achieve? Another fall from Mataway, 4th for the team. The difference between top 10, top 5 wins, stage wins, you'd be able to opt between those things. And if you had an objective that was really hard for the type of team that you had, you could lower it. It was going to cost you some sponsor money for the year, but you could change that. Now, at the same time that they changed this system, they changed your max budget for the year, and I think that's fine for when you're doing signings. But I think it should be totally appropriate, as the peloton's now down to 19 and Kuhn is actually working on the front here, totally on automatic, chasing 2 riders that have a 1-minute gap to just round the corner. And now we round the corner, 15 left. Somebody else is coming through, so Kuhn not the only one contributing. Looks like we got about 5 guys on the front looking to chase that back. Anyway, I understand why they changed the system and why they thought it made sense to, as they properly put a salary cap on things, that you could no longer negotiate. But why not? There's a lot more things that can be done with finances, so negotiating finances is a very useful piece. Gap out front has actually opened up as we are squabbling over placings here and attacking each other and having very little support for Kuhn. And now it's 5 riders getting away, or less and less, as the peloton keeps trying to come back. 4 riders cleared. Now it's 2 of us chasing the 2 of them. It's Asgreen with me. Not away, falling for the 3rd time. Alone. 5th time overall for the team that somebody's fallen. Asgreen only an 8-second advantage, so it's not substantial. But we're about to enter some additional cobbled sections that will make things interesting. Anyway, number 3. Equipment revamp. Right now the equipment system is a bit flawed. Right now, how much of an impact it has is a big unknown. How much of an impact the research makes on anything is unknown. And there is no indicators when you're choosing your sponsors, your equipment sponsors. It's, oh my gosh, Mataway, 4th puncture, poor guy. Kuhn gets attacked. Asgreen riding away. Kuhn's done the majority of the work, and Asgreen is benefiting from it. By the way, these 2 have pulled away from the peloton a bit. Really nice if Kuhn could come back at Asgreen, though. Good flat rating. I think he might be a little stronger flat rating than Asgreen. It looks like he's closed that gap ever so slightly as they approach the end on this one. Anyway, right now, there's not enough. You don't know much about the sponsors. It's totally random. An equipment revamp would be very much welcome. Ultimately, same sort of system, just a big tweak to it, but add research, more in-depth research than what we have now. Increase the importance. Make a big deal of it as we sit here poised for 4th place in the overall. Number 2, finance management revamp. Make it more in-depth. Add more to the finances, both income and expenses. Van Avermaet takes the win ahead of Vanderpool. Asgreen's going to get 3rd. We're going to get 4th. The finances are way too simplistic. And you look at any other management game, and even simple mobile ones offer substantially more detail than what you get here. There's crew. You have team members that aren't just trainers and doctors. You know, these teams have huge support teams. Where are they at? Even if they were only added in as a simple financial management feature, adding in infrastructure to it, to a headquarters, and getting team support and getting simple just bonuses, whether it's boosting your race day condition or boosting your training or boosting fitness levels or recovery levels, things like that. Simple things that modify the attributes ultimately, but only changing that. But you're adding all these layers of realism by adding in crew, by adding in infrastructure, by adding in just general financial management of your organization, is going to have a huge impact on the depth of the game, on the realism of the game, the immersion of the game. And I love the potential of that. And like I said, even simple mobile games do that at a much greater scale than what you see here. So we know that it's wouldn't be the hardest thing to implement. And finally, number 1 on the list, before we get out of here, this was the number 1 most requested thing of all. Fix the current bugs before implementing something new. The most popular thing that people had to say is, make what we have now right. Let me give you just one simple example. And it was supposed to have been fixed 2 years ago. And then their 1 month update to the game rolled back on it, went back to the old system, and it's continued to be the old system now for the subsequent game and, full year since. That being time gaps. Time gaps were addressed so that they were more realistic, so that you would actually get gaps in between groups. You'd have huge gaps from a breakaway group to a chase group to a peloton, and then all of those riders would have same time, even though there was 3 minutes between this group and that third group on the road, and yet all of those groups end up with same time at the end. That was addressed last year, but they rolled back, and they still haven't fixed it this year. And that gap issue has been the same issue for as long as I've been playing Pro Cycling Manager, which is now going on a decade. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Thanks for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe if you want. If I missed anything big here, go ahead, leave some more comments. I don't think we're going to be to a point of having another edition of this. You never know. I'll see you next time, and we continue our journey. It's still a fun game. Don't worry about that last piece. It's still very much a fun game. But I do agree with the community in the sense that bugs are going to happen. It's a part of the industry. All games face issues, but known issues going years without being fixed. That's something that really gets on people's nerves. So I get that one. All right, have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.